to the CE Pro podcast. I'm Executive Editor Arlen Schweiger. One of the most reliable brands in the custom industry has always been Vanco International, owner of the Evolution, Beale Street Audio, Pulse Audio, and Vanco brands. In this episode, we talked to Vanco's Mark Corbin about how the company continues to help its dealers with award-winning support and how its latest audio, HDMI, AV over IP, and other solutions can foster residential and resi-commercial market success going forward. Mark Corbin, president of Vanco International, which is the provider of brands such as its own name brand, Vanco, Evolution, Beale Street Audio, and Pulse Audio. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much, and thanks for having me. I look forward to it.
Not a problem. So we want to talk about a whole bunch of things in the residential and commercial markets, a lot of infrastructure items. So, we wanted to start off, one of the biggest issues in the AV market driving the conversation right now is HDMI 2.1. Where does the evolution from HDMI 2.0 to 2.1 stand right now?
Sure. Pretty big question that's pending out there for a lot of people, and it's a main thing that we're featuring 8K, and that's really what 2.1 is. It's all about the bandwidth. But the other main purpose of the 2.1 and the reason it needs to evolve is we haven't had the testing in the past. So a lot of the specifications around HDMI 2.1, even up at CES a year ago, we really didn't have any kind of testing guidelines to abide by. Now, luckily, we're capable of doing that with equipment like Astro, Teledyne, creating testers and displays, such as even Sony, PlayStation, those type of guys creating products that allow us to actually now certify and test these standards. So I think by, within the next few months, hopefully even ramped up near CEDIA, we'll see much more specifications on testing procedures, as well as certifications. But that's been the biggest issue on the evolution of it all, is what is the testing procedure that HDMI.org is going to give us? What is the actual certifications that we can receive to make sure that, just like any of the other products we produce from HDMI, it's definitely a certified product and it works in the field. And that's been the biggest hold up to the evolution, is just getting the equipment to certify it.
Okay, Mark, how important is it for the HDMI group to work with manufacturers, including Vanco, to ensure that transition goes as smoothly as possible?
Yeah, we work hand in hand. First of all, it's extremely important because, let's be honest, they're in charge of what they want certified and how they want it represented, and that's really very important if you're a partner to HDMI, to make sure you represent their product correctly as well. It's not just our product, it's their product as well. But what's really good is if you keep in contact with them, we're starting to learn the importance of these aspects like EARC and some of the new testing specifications. So they're helping us, guide us through with our factories how to go through those procedures. And without that communication or that connection, you're almost shooting in the dark and trusting maybe outside testing to get you the correct certification. Working directly with HDMI allows us to not only know we're getting the correct certification and rules, as well as they're helping directly with our factories, which is phenomenal. And I think a lot of people don't understand how involved they can get, but they will get as involved as working directly in our factories in China, Vietnam, or wherever else we're producing.
Hey, Mark, so moving on from HDMI, but kind of getting into networking and some other infrastructure issues, with all the work from home that's going on right now, and that's obviously a trend that's been going on since March with a lot of businesses. How does Vanco fit into that market in terms of supplying the vendors, helping people work from home, the installers who are trying to help with that as well, in terms of giving them, reliable infrastructure, technologies, and services?
Sure. So whatever you're requiring probably requires any kind of cabling, which we specify so well in, whether it be HDMI, whether it be networking cable. We do all those products, as well as, streaming products. Whether you're just trying to stream better, we also offer some streaming products. But from a standpoint of work from home, we've just found a massive uptick in just cable alone. needing to provide cable, making that extra run to TVs or displays that require. We're not specifically in the camera market, but we sell a lot of products that go directly with those cameras and those products that allow Zooms and Rings and any of these interactive meetings. So that it's been big for us. We continue to just make sure that we have the latest and greatest technology, which is a challenge because I think all of this new work from home is presenting a lot of new technology to use. But we're very fortunate that our products are used in a lot of those base applications. So, it's important to have up-to-date, category cable, HDMI cables to produce the best quality when you're not able to reach face-to-face with people. It's important to have the quality still, even on the backhand side, when we're not seeing it up front. It's still very important to have it.
Okay, Mark, beyond the work from home trend that's happening right now in the business world, something else that COVID-19 has affected the business world with is, of course, trade events and the cancellation of trade events on a global level. What are Vanco's plans for the virtual Seedier event that's going to come up this September 15th through 17th?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, it's really unfortunate. CEDIA is, as both of you guys know, it's a big part of our family almost. We do a lot of business there, we do a lot of interaction, and we do a lot of launches there. But it is what it is, and we have to, we do have to transition and try to figure out how can we represent Vanco and my brands and as much as possible without being there. And I will tell you that the virtual system allows us to do that. So we are definitely participating in that. And it gives us a foothold to basically, it's kind of interesting for specific people who are searching for our products. It's kind of nice because it gives us a very specific platform to show newer products, right? And you're not getting tied up quite as much in a crowd of people, but you're also not getting as new exposure or those new people that probably don't know as much about you. But for us, it's really important to definitely partake. That way we can show our newest and greatest products that we're going to be releasing at the time. So I think I'm really glad that they're doing a virtual event. I'm glad it was, something that they didn't ignore or they knew they had to do. And I think it's still really important because people want to see new products, people want to see new stuff, and they can't always go into a local distributor depending state by state, as we all know. So,
Mark, along those lines, we see Vanco every year at the InfoComm show as well. Vanco has an extensive product line that supports commercial installations, and we know that a lot of the CE Pro readers are also doing commercial installs at these times. Can you share with us some of the most recent products that you guys have rolled out that address commercial installs?
Yeah, absolutely. Commercial installs. So our HDMI over IP, so our Evo AV over IP system, Evo IP, has launched in multiple different type of commercial settings. But honestly, the most recent we're seeing are a lot of smaller bars, restaurants, and breweries. We have actually seen a lot of those getting launched within that area. It's very simple to use. You usually have multiple screens. And as you guys know, video walls can be very implemented in things like that. So it makes the Evo IP system really easy to work in a commercial setting. So that's probably our largest product we've seen movement from a commercial standpoint. And the categories we've mainly seen, again, are that restaurant, bars, breweries, and even house of worship, to be honest. Right now, it seems like a time where house of worship is trying to figure out how they can get the newer systems involved to help some of that social distancing, or if they have to close, they can at least stream. So we've seen a lot of those categories in the main commercial. I would say our second leading product would be probably our Beale Street amps, where they're basically 1,000-watt commercial style amps. Those products have done very well as well, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with redoing some of your structure within those facilities.
Okay, Mark, you alluded to, and you spoke about AV over IP, and the whole topic has been the buzz for a couple of years in both the commercial and Resi markets. It's kind of been bumped from the headlines now with COVID and the economics of what's going on right now. But where do you see AV over IP trending right now? Is it still growing in adoption?
It's man, that's really funny. You mentioned that too, because AV over IP is definitely trending way up, but the interesting part is AV over IP only really fits a certain and specific market for a price point too. So if you have let's take a 4x4 system, for example, 4 sources for TVs. You're probably not going to want to spend the money that it would cost to set up an AV over IP system, right? It's not price worthy. It doesn't make a lot of sense, even with a lot of your added benefits like video walls and so forth. Matrices still serve a large purpose. So yes, it is definitely growing. It's definitely doing a lot, and it has a lot more flexibility, AV over IP, but there are certain circumstances where a 4x4 and an 8x8 do serve a purpose, and the matrix does serve a purpose. You know, a lot of installers still, if it's more residential, prefer a hardline system sometimes. And a 4x4 matrix will not have to rely on an internet signal. So we still see a ton of sales. As a matter of fact, we're having to revamp a lot of our matrices because of all the new 4K and the new specs. So we are in the process of literally revamping our entire matrix line right now. So sales have not stopped from still a hardline system standpoint, but yes, overall, AV over IP is growing. I do think it's going to be the future. And when it becomes a price point where even like our Evo IP Lite, it's still a little bit more expensive where all it does is switching. I think once the prices come down, you'll see it come up even more.
So Mark, are you able to kind of forecast into 2021 and beyond in terms of the things we just talked about, HDMI 2.1, the work from home infrastructure, AV over IP, are for residential and the commercial market, are these things that you envision kind of sticking around for a while and being the foundation of those installations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's looking pretty bright with all the first of all, with the bandwidth that we're going to have to start carrying, along with everything that's the protocols and safety that we need to really take into effect. I don't think there's any other way back at this point. I think we're going to start to get accustomed to working from home. I think there's going to be obviously new pricing structures within companies to have to deal with what we've had to deal with for the last 6 months. So I think you're going to see a lot of changes within the marketplace. And I think it's a good thing though. The greatest thing about technology, guys, is it keeps evolving and it keeps us active as a manufacturer, and it keeps us excited about the market, about our industry. And I think it's really exciting to see what's going to happen within the next 3 months. Given the case that we're in, I still think it's going to be really exciting to see what happens.
Mark, could you tell us, and right now in 2020, given everything that's going on right now, what vertical markets are your both residential and commercial dealers finding success in right now?
Sure. I think the commercial markets, I'll start with that first. Commercial markets, I think you're finding a lot of success within smaller, like I said, even earlier, bars, restaurants, breweries. We're seeing a lot of those. Obviously, your big, stadiums, stuff like that, unfortunately, right now aren't being used as much. But we're also seeing a lot of pickup in governmental work, right? So education facilities, whether it be even police stations, fire stations, you're seeing some improvement. While a lot of that is needing improvement, they're taking the time to do that. We're seeing a little bit of that. Residential wise, you're seeing a major pickup on Wi-Fi or any kind of connectivity products. So anything that makes your life simpler, right? Makes anything a lot easier to use. We're seeing a massive upswing in anything that's related to Alexa or Google driven. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And that even goes from our IP system that you can run via Alexa. We're seeing it constantly. So if you take the markets, if you take the commercial market, you take the residential markets, you can really tap into some of those products. You can continue to have success in a very interesting time right now.
So it sounds like your dealers are still doing pretty well from what you're hearing out in the field in terms of, being able to get into sites in both markets.
Yeah, and I think it's a case-by-case basis, right? I mean, for example, each state's different. Each job is different depending on if people are involved in the job or if it's empty at the time and they can get in. We're still seeing a lot of business. Is it the same? No, of course not, right? But I think what's happening is we've all taken that these last 3 months, 4 months, whatever you want to call it, it's almost really started in January when we started hearing about it. I think we're all taking a learning curve from it, and we're finding out how to make it work. And slowly people are becoming more comfortable, as long as people are taking those safety precautions. I think we're going to learn to work around it. And it's a new type of, for integrators, it's a new type of selling. And even for us as vendors and manufacturers, it's a new type of selling for everyone. But we're seeing a lot, it's still some good success. Again, every month is picking up slowly. I mean, we obviously all saw a massive hit in March and April, and we're all seeing at least an up climb, and we hope to continue to see that.
Right, we're all kind of heading toward the new normal, as they say. So, on that note, Mark Corbin, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, and we look forward to hearing more from Vanco in the future.
Yeah, Arlen and Bob, thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.